So when you went from being in the bed, ill, and the next thing you know, you're in this green pasture or whatnot, what was the initial reaction? Is that hard to remember?
Oh no, it's easy to remember.
Okay.
It was oh, okay, well, Jesus is here. In my head, I'm thinking, okay, well, Jesus is here. This has got to be heaven. I mean, okay, he really does exist. Wow. Okay. I what was I gonna, you know, it was only Jesus, right? so,
It's only Jesus, you know.
yeah. So
How difficult was it for you? I'm forwarding ahead to now when you come back, but I do want to conduct the interview this way. When you How difficult was it for you coming back now knowing the truth of that?
oh, it was very difficult.
That that some of what goes on in this world, you think you would almost feel like, what is the purpose of that? Or what if you now know the reasoning behind it, and that veil, as soon as you said to me the veil is stripped or whatever you'd said there, it immediately hit me like, if I knew that, that would be a difficult thing to readjust and come back into what you're doing here. Even though you probably love everyone here, you would still have this feeling of, oh, I know that now. So now I got to come to still do this. Sorry to keep talking, but how did you feel from
It's
that?
fine. How did I feel from
What kind of feeling, how difficult was it coming back and
uh
readjusting?
yeah, I was agreeing in my head as you were talking, so I thought you telepathically understood that. I had a very difficult time, as a matter of fact, and for years, I mean, I would talk to my then husband, and it finally, I remember this was right before I filed for divorce. I remember sitting talking to him in the kitchen, talking about God in heaven again, right? And he looked at me. We were eating lunch, and he said, "Stop, just stop talking about it. I don't ever want to hear about it again." And I was like, oh, wow,
Mm,
wow, wow, wow.
that's
Okay,
tough. Yeah.
I've got to hear about you all the time.
Mm.
I've got to, so, but then I thought, because I'd been to heaven, that I couldn't get a divorce. So I thought, okay, well, my life is just miserable for the rest of it. I'm going to be in this miserable relationship.
Hmm.
He didn't want to
I
grow or expand, and that's
Yeah.
okay. But
Yeah.
that's where we were supposed to stop. Otherwise
Mhm.
we wouldn't have I wouldn't have filed for divorce. So, but it was very difficult, and I still find it difficult in moments. Like, I can sit here with you because you're a really good questioner. Okay, I can tell you're a very good interviewer, and I know that you're sincerely curious and
Mhm.
genuine about
Mhm.
this. I can feel it. So it's easy for me to open up to you, and it's easy for me to talk about it. Whereas I have tried to express, that I was in a near death experience to somebody who wasn't asking me about it, but I just felt like I'm going to reveal it. And it was shut down.
Mhm.
And then I go from this, angelic feeling, this heavenly feeling, to a very human feeling of that rejection, right? And the minimizing and the dismissiveness that humans can be, and the judgment and all of this stuff. So I still struggle with it. I mean, I because I'm not aligned. I
Mm.
never was aligned,
Yeah.
like, to be around that type of person for many reasons that go beyond near death experiences. But it still is difficult to feel when people are not sincere, or when I just kind of, like, I'll remove myself.
Right.
I'm not going to force like, you don't have to listen to me. you know, I'm not going to try and make you feel anything about me.
Right. And I think I think, and again, I haven't had an experience myself, but I know who I am and I know what I feel. And I do believe that not everyone's supposed to understand that. It's not part of their journey. I do believe there's people that it is part of their journey. That's why things like this exist now. This is why everything's ramping up. This is why information is getting out there a lot faster and more people are seeing it. I mean, this could just affect one person in such a massive way, just seeing this interview in such a massive way that 40 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago would never have happened because these platforms didn't exist. The information wasn't out there. And that person probably needs to know and needs to understand it. But I can feel I can't imagine. The other thing I was thinking in my head when you were talking is how odd it must be to watch the news.
I
Because
don't.
right,
I
you can't,
can't.
you probably can't. I mean, I can't myself, but I can't imagine going, having a near death experience, experiencing this afterlife, experiencing what actually we are at our core beyond this. I was called a meat suit, and then coming back in and watching the news. I can't imagine what that would, it would be bizarre would be the only word. It would almost be like, what, why? Now I know everything probably has its purpose, but it's probably very difficult, I would think, for most people that have had these experiences to feel the negativity or to feel that what goes on.
Well, you bring up a very good point, and I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say something that I don't know if I've ever said this to anybody else that's interviewed me. One, because I've just I don't know if I've allowed people to ask me questions. I mean, I have, although I get really excited sometimes, and I don't know. It's just, I guess it depends on the day. But um, I will say this now, coming back, it has become clearer to me what it is that I need to do now in my life, having had this last near death experience.
Mm.
It isn't about sitting back and being complacent on this planet. It's about stepping up. And one of the, like you mentioned, this type of sharing near death experiences is ramping up because all of us have to step up and tell our truth and say, it's love. Because look, none of us have had the same exact near death experience, none of us. But because we're not the same souls, okay, number one, I don't care if somebody said, oh, well, I saw so and so in heaven too. Okay, that's fine, but you and I are not the same soul. So therefore, we did not experience it the same way. The end. But I I look now, and with the lessons that I learned in heaven, I have I feel like an obligation to talk about love and to
Mhm.
talk about how love needs to be utilized and how love needs to be taught. And it's not just an energy, it's not just a physical touch, it's not just, being intimate with your spouse or your significant other, whatever. It's not about just, loving your children or loving your parents, or it's not just these things. It's not loving ice cream for sure. But you see, there's all these different layers of love, right? So
Right.
if we stop and think about that, okay, let's put this in the school systems.
Mm.
Let's put this starting in preschool, and we start giving little pieces of information, okay? Because currently in the United States, and this has been, our education system has been dumbed down, okay, unfortunately, but there are parts in the world where there is no education. And I'm speaking to every part of the world. I really believe that it would benefit humanity if we looked at our histories, like as in each country, look at the world history, okay? And look at the histories in our communities. Look at the histories in the religious whatever. Pay attention to what is lacking.
Mhm.
And you know what's always lacking? Is an understanding of what love really is,
Mhm.
in my opinion. Now, I am not, a theologian. I am not whatever you're going to call it. I'm an ex-Catholic. I will respectfully say I am, as long as, hey, if religion is making, is that, if that's what your soul needs, I'm good with that. But don't come down on anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Just be accepting, because this was the major message. I should back up here. God said it to me first, and then everybody else in heaven kept saying it to me. And I heard it so many times. I actually looked at this one angelic soul and I said, I know. I mean, you guys keep saying this to me, but now I understand why, because it needs to come out now. So what God said to me was, acceptance is synonymous with love.
Acceptance is synonymous with love.
This needs to be taught. And that little phrase needs to be mandatory in
Mm-hmm.
every school year.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to get through high school and in order to get through college, you need to write about it.
What
You need to
what
do a
what would
report.
you define acceptance as synonymous with love? If someone's listening to that and they're a little confused with what that means, I have a feeling I know what that means, but I'm wondering what.
I think it means a lot of things. Honestly, I think it means a lot of things. For instance, I'll just start with a simple one. Accepting that, like, I have a friend who is Muslim.
Mhm.
Okay, well, her belief systems were different than my belief systems growing up. But now that I've been in heaven and met Prophet Muhammad and gave him a hug when I was leaving heaven, getting back to my body, I can tell you he was only love.
Mm.
Why is it so hard to believe that he is only love? Although that takes it off into another angle. I won't go there. But she and I had different backgrounds. I accept that she expresses and understands society, understands herself, understands her soul, understands decisions that she makes based upon her upbringing. I respect that because that's what she knows. That's what her parents knew. That's what their parents knew, perhaps. So it's the thread in the generational thread, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's all good. It's all good.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong, if there's going to be a wrong here, is that we don't understand the histories. We don't we don't teach empathy. And empathy is learned when you understand love.
Right. So I would say, um, I've always understood empathy personally, and that's probably why I am who I am. There might have been a few years in my teenage years where I didn't understand empathy. Our brains go a little kooky in those years. But I know that for the majority of my life, that's been something that I've been very, um, I think everyone around me feels that I know that I feel that way. I was talking to someone else who had an experience, and I was saying, we have so many rules here with love as well, right? And it's almost as if in many cases we're not allowed to love and we're not allowed to show love. And there's all these rules. And we grow up understanding all these rules of and the thing that we are at our core being love, we make rules around. And it's strange. It's not truly who we are. And um what you're saying right now, maybe this will go into a time capsule someday. Um, because what you're saying around the school system, the education system, I would hope that in the distant future, even hopefully near future, that is the case, that we learn different things. I agree with you. I think the systems are out of whack. I think we're learning things incorrectly. And I think now the youngest generations, especially the ones that are addicted to the phones and the TikToks and the just swipe, 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 swipe. It's at an all-time high. And maybe that's part of the whole plan because they're going to realize what is going on. there might, and unfortunately we have to, it's like we have to suffer through it first to actually learn from it. It's terrible. So I'm going off in a spiel there, but
I
I
love
I
it.
I do believe that over time, I would hope that that's the way that we evolve into who we're going to evolve into. Really, two quick questions going back to your NDE, just to kind of go back in there. You mentioned about we reincarnate, we come here. Do you believe in or understand reincarnation? And if so, if we've done this, like I think you do because you said you've done this multiple, you feel like you've been around here or wherever we go. Where I get confused, and this is why I wonder sometimes about your experience and if you were in some kind of in between mode, in between place, like here's Earth, I'm just using it for general practicalities here, but Earth, where you were, where we go. And the reason I'm saying that, I don't know, is because you were you there. Your human body, you resembled you, Megan. So if you've incarnated and you've been maybe I don't know, a native child or like you've had different lives, maybe different planets. If you've done that, why would you be that person over there at the time and not one of your other incarnations? Okay, I
Because
want
this
that.
is my, yeah, because this is my last life. For me, I'm not on any other planet right now.
Okay.
So, and you mentioned planets, and that is true. Our souls split up, and we are all, I mean, bottom line, we're all derived from the creator. Okay. But when I was sitting with God at the table, when I very first got into temple, I remember I thought I was being, I thought I was so smart by asking him this question. I said, so God, how is it that you're here with me right now? And there's hundreds of thousands of people dying right now. And he said, Megan, I'm an atom. I split myself up for each and every one of you. I am as whole to them as I am to you right now. And that was beyond my comprehension, but I also understood it at the same time. And that I don't understand. I don't understand how to describe that, but I
Okay.
understood it. I knew that what he was telling me was absolutely correct. Absolutely. I mean, it was God, but I mean, like I could feel the truth in it and I could feel the understanding of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you see yourself as that person that you were there because your truth is that this is the last run for you in whatever this is, this experience, this experiment, whatever we are. This is what we're doing. Doesn't mean there's not other things coming for you, but in regards to this, this is what you were at the end of. You were going to be that person. Okay. I'm curious of that. I was just curious of that because um I'm trying to understand that. I'm trying to understand that. Why you wouldn't be a different person, because if we do keep coming back, or if there's more incarnations coming, or but maybe that's your experience, right?
Well, I just thought of something as you're talking. This is very engaging. And I thought, okay, well, I know I'm jumping way ahead here, but I used to get pulled back into heaven. Okay. After this near death experience, I
Mm-hmm.
had other visits in heaven. Okay. And outside of heaven. But there was this one time where I was on this other planet and I was still married. Okay. I was still married. So when I was on this other planet, there was my husband. I was swimming in the ocean with my husband, who in this life does not like he doesn't like sand. He doesn't like being
Mm-hmm.
in the ocean. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we were swimming in the ocean with somebody else. There were three of us swimming on this other planet.
Mm.
And he looked exactly like he does on this planet, on the other planet.
So then we get into, because again, talking to different NDE'ers, layers, dimensions, things that we can't quite
Comprehend.
comprehend, and and we're not meant to. So, you know, then it makes me feel like, this massive experience you've had, which is beyond what a lot of us get to experience. Not that we want to, you know, like a lot of people don't want to go through that. Um, to feel that, but it's a blessing that you did in a way. But that experience, that could have just been the tip of the iceberg. Like there's, I'm sure there's things that you went there and you still haven't retained. I'm sure there's conversations you had, things that you would know then that you can't know now for whatever reason. I wanted to get your story on, um, you said you had spoke to the man behind you. Actually, I just noticed he's on the wall there.
Yeah.
So yeah. So how can you explain what happened in that experience?
Okay, so I was walking. Okay, first of all, I've got to back up to when I was a kid. When
Okay.
Queen came out, I was 11 years old. Well, when they came to the United States, I was 11 years old. Oh my God. What was it? Another One Bites the Dust, I think was the first song here, or yeah, I think it was. Anyway, instantly my soul connected to Freddie Mercury. And I instantly was soothed by the passion and this soulful voice that came out and just threw his emotion out in his music.
Mm-hmm.
And the music being played as well, I could feel it. I could feel it on such a deep level. And I never stopped listening to Queen my entire life. I still haven't stopped. I so that is the one band I never saw when I was a kid, and I've seen a lot of concerts.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was walking down the sidewalk in heaven, and as I was looking down, I was thinking about what was going on Earth. I didn't want to go back to Earth, and I was just like, where am I going now? What is happening now? But I see that somebody's walking toward me. I got the feeling somebody was walking toward me, and I looked up, and it was Freddie Mercury. And I became this like total fan geek. And I looked at him, I go, oh my God. And he stopped. I said, you're Freddie Mercury. And he said, yeah. And I said, wow, wow, it's so, it's great to meet you. Whatever I said to him, he says, well, how are you? And I said, well, actually, I feel like crap. I'm in kidney failure on Earth right now. I remember saying this to him. I've got all these health issues going on. I'm in the hospital bed right now. And he goes, ah. So he let me go on and he says, well, do you want to go have fun? And I said, yeah. So he took my hand and he turned around and we kept walking. And he took me to this outdoor amphitheater. And then somehow he disappeared. I don't remember like how he left me, but there were all of these other souls in the amphitheater. We were all wearing our white togas. Okay, that's all I can tell you. And all of a sudden, this show started. But the show opened with Spike Jones and Billy Barty. They used to have a show in the 1940s, I think. It was the 40s or 50s? Maybe it was the 50s. And so I'd met Billy Barty as a kid and then again as an adult because I'm originally from Southern California. So like running into famous people, what we consider famous people on this planet, it's like not a big deal,
Right.
So there he was, and they were performing. And then after that, there was Ella Fitzgerald, who I loved her music, by the way. We have the same birthday, as a matter of fact, Ella and I. So she was singing. Cole Porter was there. And then after them, it was the Queen Band. And the Queen Band consisted of course, Freddie Mercury, Rick James, Marvin Gaye, Buddy Rich on drums, and Terry Kath
Wow.
guitar. So it was quite the lineup. And
That is
then
a super band.
it was a super band,
Wow.
absolutely. And it was so absolutely magnificent. And I remember just smiling and dancing, and all of these other souls dancing with me, and
Wow.
we were all just in this vibration of happiness. It was so joyous and it was so freeing. It was so incredible. It was so
That's
incredible.
that's unbelievable. I mean, as a musician, you can see all my musical
Oh, yeah.
things.
Now I can see it.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a musician since I was a kid, and I can't imagine music not being a massive part of my life. And um I've always heard that the music in heaven is beautiful, that it's beyond even anything you can imagine and all
It
these
is.
things. And but to hear even that kind of music exists, and we can go over there and create and do the things that we've done here, and probably everybody's famous, and it's like it's beautiful. Like that's a beautiful thing to know, like that they're still there, that we still get to experience that. Um, when you say that, I'm sure there's some people that would hear that and think, "What? That sounds crazy." But then I think to myself, maybe we're the crazy ones to think that this is the place where that all exists. That,
Absolutely.
like,
Absolutely.
are we not the image of what is there, right? Because if that makes sense, then that's at its ultimate, you know. Whereas this is, yes, it can be a beautiful thing here as well, and it's a beautiful, maybe it's that, you know, um, earth can be difficult, and music is such a beautiful thing. I coach for a living, I play for a living, and I know what music does for people, and maybe that is a gift that we were allowed to bring down. I'm going in that direction with this, but I'm thinking it from the opposite way, that, we're not going up there to see Freddie Mercury. We're down here and we got to see him for a little bit, and now he's back there. And that,
Mhm.
I'm just thinking about it from that sense. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah.
interesting way to look at it.
And, it's interesting. Two things. One, I wanted to share with you after that concert what happened. But before I do, I mean, if you want to hear it, their music is actually a part of the number three. This is one of the things I write about in the near death experience book. And so the number three happens to be the most powerful number that exists. And God had two messages for me to bring back to earth. He said, you have to tell people acceptance is synonymous with love, and you have to marry science with religion. And I'm thinking,
Mm.
you want me to do this? Like, I'm not a science person. I sucked in science in high school. I was like, oh, I don't want to dissect a frog. I'm a vegetarian. And that's what my protest was in that class. So I didn't.
Right.
But it's like, okay, well, what he shared with me was that the top line of the three, the top point of the three is science. The middle point of the three is math. And the bottom point of the three is music. So without science, there can be no math. And without math, there can be no music.
Mm.
And that number three is a part of our soul because there are 5 chambers in our soul. And science, math, and music are 3 of the chambers that I remember offhand. I don't remember the other 2 right now. I'd have to look in my book.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. It's
Yeah.
interesting too, because I always see synchronicities of 333 and 1111 and all these different things, and that's a whole other topic. But
Yeah.
yeah, I can see that you've written a book, right? You said you've written a book. What is your book about? Where can people find it? Like, can I get some information on that?
Yeah. So it's called A Catalyst, My 5 Days in Heaven, and it's on Amazon. And this is the book. Well, God ordered me to write a book. He didn't say what it was going to be called. He didn't tell me what it was going to be about because I remember asking him. I said, well, what do you want me to write about? And he says, you'll figure it out. So
Hmm.
I'd never written a book before. And I tried protesting, saying, like, I've never written a book before. And he goes, I don't care. I thought, okay, well, all right. So anyway, I wrote that book. And then a year later, exactly 1 year later, I put out my other book, Love's Recipes, because during my divorce, it was so awful that in my meditation, because I meditate every day and I pray every day, and in my meditation, um, I don't remember who said it to me in heaven, but they said, we want you to write about love every day. Even when you're not feeling it, you need to write about it. And I thought,
Wow.
all right, well, it's orders from above. Okay, I'll write about love. So I did.
Wow. That's interesting. So a catalyst, 5 days in heaven. That's the main book. And
Yes.
where is there a website, or just is there anything that
Yeah, it's called 5daysinheaven.com. And it's the number 5 spelled out, 5 days in heaven.
okay, I see.
And there's more information on there about.
Well, I for one am interested in it. It seems, again, I've the conversation we've had has opened up different areas of your NDE, which is beautiful because we're going more in depth with it. And, people can get your entire story from your book, I'm assuming. So it's out there and it seems really interesting. I do find a lot of people when they have near-death experiences, they do come back and write a book. A lot of people do. They're to write it, they're to say it. So there must be a reasoning behind people having these experiences, including yourself, and the impact that it can make on the world. There has to be. I'm trying to think of how we can, maybe eventually I'll have you back and we can go more in depth with your NDE because it seems like a very deep.
Oh, there's a lot more.
I
Yeah.
know, and I'm feeling that. Did I also see that you have a podcast where people can get a lot of information about you? Yeah. What is the podcast called?
It's called Conversations with Megan. And then put in because there's Megan there's another Megan Brown. Well, actually, there's another Megan who has a podcast. So just put in Brown and then it'll come up. And I get very, I'm very descriptive about my near-death experience over,
That is one interesting thing I found with this talk tonight is that it's so descriptive that it feels like it could take us 12 hours to talk about the entire experience, which is awesome, which is amazing. Because some people don't get that when they come back. They have this quick moment and they're trying to still put the pieces together. It seems like you have a good memory of it.
Oh, it was very impactful because, somebody said to me, two people have said to me, well, how do you know that this experience wasn't designed because this is what you were used to, or you were whatever. And, the first time I heard that, I thought, but I was an atheist for 18 years before I got to heaven. So I believed in nothing. I didn't have an expectation of what to see.
Right.
I wasn't expecting anything.
So when you were ill, you were an atheist at that time when you were,
Yeah.
yeah. So you had felt like, no, there's nothing coming. And then next thing you know, you're there. So when you went from being in the bed ill, and the next thing you know, you're in this green pasture or whatnot, was it immediately like a feeling of, oh, I know where I am? Or was it, oh my goodness, what? Like what was the initial reaction? Is that hard to remember?
Oh no, it's easy to remember.
Okay.
It was, oh, okay, well, Jesus is here. In my head, I'm thinking, okay, well, Jesus is here. This has got to be heaven. I mean, okay, he really does exist. Wow. Okay. I what was I gonna, it was only Jesus, right?
It's only Jesus, Yeah.
So
So you knew, so in that moment, it was a life changer. It was okay. Okay. Right. And then you obviously went on to have all these different experiences or whatnot. One of the questions I wouldn't be doing a soul inspired episode if I didn't ask this question. And it's something I really want you to know if you can feel it from your heart and what comes to you first right away when I ask this question. Why are we here?
because we've chosen to be, and it's actually, it's not just a simple answer. I mean, I'll give it how I understand it, just very simply. We This is really a long answer, but we have basically been, okay, remember God being the atom, right? And splits himself up. And he's as whole to me as he was to everybody else dying, right?
Right.
Okay. Well, there's a creator, right? There's a creator, the Lord, and the Lord is above God. Now, that doesn't sound, a human reaction I would probably bet on would be, okay, this lady has no idea what she's talking about. But in fact, I do. So the Lord was first and is only the highest frequency of love. So the Lord created God. And God, this is a quick version, right? So God wanted goddess, so that you have the male and the female balance of energy. So I met her too, by the way. So then they decide, God, it was actually God's desire to create humans on earth. And so what happened was there are 1,000 archangels, there are 1,000 angels, there's 243 saints and 348 ascended masters. And I remember being shown and told that all of a sudden it was okay, we're going to put humans on earth. We're going to put humans on earth. Who wants to go? And Archangel Michael stepped forward first and said, I'll go. So each one of these, so there were a number of archangels and then there were a number of angels that stepped forward, and their soul was going to be split up and put into a human body.
So we began that way and it evolved to where we are now.
Well, we began as humans,
Mm-hmm.
but that's a loaded question because
Right.
then you've got, and I say this respectfully, but there's kind of no way around it with me. People say Adam and Eve were the first two.
Mm.
Not according to my experience.
Right.
So, it's irrelevant. And I do write about it in my book. I don't actually, I mean, you're asking me questions that I actually don't write about in my book. So it's
Okay.
great because there's so much. I mean, that book could go on and on. And it's like, when I got a visit from heaven again, November, it was August of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them came and they silhouetted themselves knowing full well that I'd be like holding on to them, like, take me off this planet, so they
Right.
wouldn't let me see who they were. But I knew that it was a male energy. And he telepathically, he sat down on my bed and he leaned over and he looked at me and he said, you have until November. I was like, okay. Telepathically, I said, okay. 2 days later, because I was so busy with work, 2 days later, I meditated and I said, so what is this I have until November? And they said to put the book out. And I
Oh.
was like, oh, okay. Well, that was the end of August. Okay, so I like had to figure, I was going, wait, it's not even done. But that doesn't matter because if it's got to come out by November, I've just got to throw it all in the fire and go, all right, you know what? I'm just going to roll the dice here and just go for it. Just
Yeah.
put out every thought that's in here right now. And that's what I did because heaven ordered me to.
Right.
So, but anyway, I kind of shifted there. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
There's a
No,
lot.
that's fine. And and I asked the question of why we're here because some people say to love, some people say to do
Oh,
this, but
yes, actually, yes. Oh, I'm sorry to answer your question even
Mhm.
more, right? So we come here on this planet and we, as humans, our souls are only the highest frequency of love. That's all we are. Okay. And what we are to continue to do is be examples of love on this planet to keep evil away. Because
Mm.
I didn't believe in hell. I did not believe in it until I saw something in heaven.
Mhm.
And, you know, God was explaining to me that, oh, yeah, no, it's real. Jesus was explaining to me, Archangel Michael, I was with him
Mhm.
walking in the grass. And yeah, they
Well,
made
I
it very
do.
clear it exists.
Yeah, no, that's one of those weird topics that people get really uncomfortable with is how real. And then I've seen and talked to people who've had hellish experiences and that it's energy for sure. I think that's the word I'm using. And yeah, we need to keep our energy high and to bring good. I look at it like I look at what happens in this world and there's high and low energy here, so why wouldn't there be high and low energy there? And it's probably more magnetized. So we got to keep our energy high and keep our energy in love um and because the other thing is that like just like a lot of religions, there's a lot of fear-based stuff and I don't like going there because we don't need to go there, but it's sometimes necessary because just because I feel like I don't want to go there because I feel and truly feel love of a higher energy, doesn't mean the guy down the road doesn't feel that way, right? Like he might be in a completely terrible state and he might go into that place.
Mhm.
So it kind of is our responsibility to give love and light.
It is. It is.
Right? Because I mean, if we just turn our backs at everybody, on everyone, that's not right either. I think what's happened is the religious dogma out there of people trying to force people into churches, and you're going to go to hell if you don't become this, and if you do, and that creates this negative vibe that God is up there with a pitchfork, and that's not it either. But there's definitely
Not at all.
something because it exists, and it's important to not. It's not. We don't want to walk around all scared of it. If we're doing the right things intentionally, I'm sure we're fine, but we can't turn our backs on people. We just can't do that. I don't believe that. And I'm probably getting a little too far off with this, but yeah.
No, I don't think so. And I think you're exactly right. I think that everybody should be scared of evil. I really
Mhm.
do. Because I'll tell you something. I had evil acts done to me in this life. And there's no way that that should be allowed. And in not turning your backs on those who need help, or that those who need to talk, or those, whatever the circumstance is, if you can make something right, if you can help bring about peace for somebody, or give them instruction of how to do it, or anything, help. The I think the biggest help, and this is so complex because it all depends on the circumstance that we're talking about.
Mhm.
Really, it depends on the circumstance we're talking about. Because there are so many things, like, one thing in particular in the news, um, the Gaza Strip and the Jews. And, I was working with a couple of Jewish women, and her friend was in Israel at the time that they got bombed there
Mhm. Yeah.
and were shot up in the camp. And it, and I remember I looked at this group of people who'd come into the store, and they were all from Israel, and it had happened while they were on vacation. And I said, I'm so sorry to have heard what happened. And they said, oh, it's over. And immediately in my head, I heard, no, it's not.
Mm.
And as we know, it's not. But this gets back. This isn't, I want to throw this in here. Heaven has been a manipulative tool in religious whatever, to
Mhm.
say, if you're good, if you do it my way, if you do it the way in which we've structured it, then you'll go to heaven.
Mhm.
That's it in a nutshell. And if you don't, then you're going to hell.
Mhm.
In fact, love and evil, right? Evil's a choice. It's a
Yeah.
choice. But
Yeah.
love is also a choice.
Mhm.
And what we need to do, this is what makes us, right, in like what we're doing right now, even more responsible and obligated to serving the message of what it is that we want to see the ripple effect, be the ripple effect in this world.
Mhm.
It needs to be the ripple effect. Love needs to be the ripple effect.
Yeah.
There's no excuse, no excuse now. And
Yeah.
look, for me, I there's I will never turn my back on love, ever. I will serve
Mhm.
love for the rest of my life because of what I've experienced. I will not go back to heaven and look at God and him go, and so you got another bump in the road. Why did you turn?
Mhm.
Well, I never turned. I got a little frustrated with you again, God. But yeah, no, we're good. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I've done
Yeah.
everything you've asked. I put the
Right.
book out. I did all this. I put
Right.
together, I did the
Right.
meditations, love, and
I think the beautiful thing that I once heard from someone who had an NDE, and they talked about the same thing, is similar, but they said, at the end of the day, God knows your intent because he knows everything. It's like you said, he knew what you were saying.
Yeah, he
So
did.
if someone's sitting there worried that they're going to go to hell, well, question why you're worried.
Yeah.
Because
What
if
have
your
you done?
intention is love, you're
Yeah.
fine. But
Yeah.
we got to question that. We got to figure out what's going on if you're questioning that. So, um, because it is intention, and if everything's immediate there, and they know, they know the intention. I guess what saddens me is how does someone get to that place? The opposite. It's it hurts me at my core. Like I don't understand it. But
Yeah.
you
Well,
know, yeah.
I'd like to jump back into heaven again and share something with you because remember earlier I said I want to tell you what happened after the concert.
Yeah.
So all of the entertainment that evening came back to my tent, and we were all sitting at this big long table because the 27 archangels that were sitting at God's table when I got to heaven were there in my tent, and every soul that was in the show, right, was there in the tent. And there were souls who came in while I was in the tent with everybody. So cherubs are filling up our wine glasses and the decanters with red wine. There were, I remember, gold basket of bread on the table, and there were multiple baskets. But the archangels weren't drinking. Okay, the rest of us were. And Freddie was sitting across from me. Terry Kath was to the right of him, and then we were all just laughing and we were talking about our past lives together. So, like Freddie and I were married in a previous life. Rick James and I were siblings, or we were married. Each one of us, Marvin Gaye and I, we had a previous life. We were also married in another life. Terry Kath and I were siblings in another life. So I remember we were laughing, having such a good time. And then all of a sudden walked in Prophet Muhammad. And
Oh,
we were all like, whoa, it was a very sobering moment to say the least, because there's this power like Jesus that you feel with Prophet Muhammad, except Prophet Muhammad has more of a serious vibe about him. And but he's total love. That's all you could feel. And he came in and he spoke directly to me. And he said, looking in my eyes, he said, you're going to go back to earth and you're going to tell them that I pray for them all the time. I pray for the Middle East all of the time.
mm,
I'm always with them. I've never left them. I pray for the earth. I love everybody on earth. You will make it known. And he said a few more things. He said it was only a few minutes, earth minutes, that he was there, maybe 5 minutes, I would guess. Maybe it was 10, but it wasn't long. And then he looked at me and he said, my time allotted with you has come to an end. I must go now. Oh, wait, no, wait. Before he said that to me, I said to him, because he paused, he stopped talking, like he was done talking. And I said, may I ask you a question? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, forgive me, but I'm an now ex-atheist. Like I was an atheist coming in here, and then I'm an ex-Catholic, and you're Muslim, and I know nothing about Islam. And I, why are you asking me to do it?
mm.
And he looked at me and he said, I have my ways. I know it, like, he knew what he was doing. So I thought, oh, okay, and then he said, my time allotted with you has come to an end here. I must go. And then he said, put the book out. And he turned around. And all of the angels, I forgot to tell you about all the angels that came in, because there were 300 angels with him. And they were surrounding the inside of this tent and then the exterior of the tent. And as he left, the angels were going out before him and then behind him. And when he left, we all sat there and like, we were speechless. We were speechless at this soul, this vibration of love coming in and talking to us.
Right.
And Marvin, I think it was Marvin Gaye who, or it could have been Rick James. I think it was Marvin Gaye who looked at me and he said, Megan, he said, you have no idea, what it was like to be in the civil rights movement. You have no idea what it's like to be Black and to be spat upon You have no idea what it's like to be Black and be beaten for no reason. You have no idea. And I had tears.
Mm-hmm.
And each one of these souls, and Billy Barty was there, and he even shared, he said, you have no idea what it's like to have been a little person in my life, my whole life. He said, I remember I would be walking down the street with my parents as a kid, and people would stop and laugh at me and look at me and instruct my parents that I should be in the circus because I've got no life before me. And I'll add in here, Billy Barty actually created the Little People's Organization of America. He created that. So he was, a founder here on earth as well from his struggle. So we all have a struggle. How are we going to use it to help other people? Because that's what we're here to do. And so after Marvin Gaye said that, then, Rick James was talking about it. Terry Kath was with Chicago. So, he was singing and writing, and he was singing about the politics going on and about the inequality and about, what was going on in life at that time in the 60s. So he was giving me his input. Freddie Mercury spoke up and said, I want to remind you that being transitioning from a heterosexual to a homosexual in the height of my career was not easy. He said, I got a lot of ridicule for that. And, by the end of this meeting in the tent, I was crying, and I said to all of them, I said, I promise you, I'm going to share every one of your stories. I'm going to share it with everybody who will listen. I'm going to share it because there is no reason that equality should not be happening and that love for all should not be happening. There's no reason. And this, if your listeners are to take away anything, there's a lot here, but there's one thing that I have thought about over the years. And that is, why are we not, as humanity, looking at our world history and all of the histories and making the change for generations to come? Because if there's love will heal everything. And it was Father Time, when I was coming out of a conference room meeting in heaven, I kid you not, I'm coming out of this conference room, and there's this 8-foot tall, white, snow white being with like this white, long, I don't know if it was a robe or whatever. And I stopped. I was like 7 or 8 feet away from him, and all I could feel was love. I was like, whoa, who is this guy, right? And I looked at him and I said, who are you? And he said, I'm Father Time. I was like, you really exist? And, he smiled and he said, I want to let you know something. He said, you have felt alone in your life and in your lives, in your previous lives. He says, I've always been with you. I have never left you. I've always loved you. And I was absolutely blown away, right? So I stood there and he said, I have to go now. Our conversation was really very short. And I said, but wait, because I didn't want to believe. I said, but wait, God ordered me to write a book. Do you have anything that you want to add into the book? He said, yes. Time does not heal all wounds. Only love heals all wounds throughout time.
Oh, I like that.
I've never forgotten that.
Wow.
The moment he said that to me, I've never forgotten that.
That'll be put on a short on the podcast.
Perfect.
That was a really good, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a really good one. I think that can speak to a lot of people, that just you're taking something and flipping it around and it makes more sense the other way.
Yeah, because even if you're an atheist, I'm not here telling you that, like heaven's the way or religion is the way. That's not where I'm coming from. It's love.
Right.
And even as an atheist,
Yeah.
One thing that we all have in common, even with atheists and those of us who are on spiritual journeys of whatever type, right? We all want love.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true.
That's the common thread.
And yeah, I love a lot of what you said there. I'm glad you went back and explained a little bit more because I can use some of that and put that in with the question of why we here. It really, that to me speaks more because we are here to understand other people, to love, to
Accept.
accept, and also to, it's okay to allow yourself to know what it probably felt like for those people. I think a lot of people are afraid to feel things
Well, of course,
and they turn
because
their
look
back
at,
on them instead of actually facing it. You turn your back. Now, news and energy and all that, I'm very careful with what I watch because I feel like if I watch, I just, my energy just goes boom. And so I got to be careful of that. And I've come to terms in my own life that I'm going to do the best I can do and the tools I'm given, what I can do here. Because if you go out and try to feel everyone's pain, that's not good either. But it's good to understand what people are going through, and to have compassion and empathy. And that's what I got out of what you said there in the ending there with the meeting. So, oh, okay. This has gone a while, so I do have to end it
no, I know. And
because unfortunately, like there is time here. I'm sitting here thinking, this is the problem is we're in time. And so, must be
yeah,
nice to have a conversation over there because there's no time holding you back from the conversation.
yeah.
Um, I do want to thank you for being on. I do usually like to say to all my listeners, please like, share, subscribe. There's a very high chance this is going to be a 2-part series. So hopefully you stuck around and listened to the whole thing. And I do want to thank you for being here again, Megan. It's been an amazing conversation, and I'm sure there's a lot more to it. And again, I do encourage anyone, if you want to know about Megan's story, to check out her book and check out her podcast, and all the different links will be in the description of the episode.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to spread the words of love. So